God Family Country, how's everybody doing? We're going to switch gears tonight and talk about, I told you, we're just going to talk about whatever we want to talk about from time to time. Now, this has been in the news, and I think, regardless of your religious affiliation, whichever party you lean towards, this is a little sus. They keep saying they're going to release these Epstein files. And recent developments regarding the release of the Epstein files have raised public suspicion due to the perceived delays and lack of transparency. If you got nothing to hide, why hide the paperwork when there's nothing to hide? And we're being all about full transparency. So, on February 27, 2025, Attorney General Pamela Bondi, in collaboration with the FBI, released the first phase of declassified Epstein files. A lot of people were disappointed because it seems like it was just a little bit more fluff. Some people were claiming that some of this information was already released, and much of the information had been previously leaked or already made public. So it was offering not really a lot of insight. And the lack of new revelations, of course, they led to widespread disappointment. And if that was everything that was put out, I think we would be okay with it. Like, hey, I guess you guys kind of gave us the bulk of everything, and there's nothing more to see here. There was a response from Bondi, and she acknowledged that thousands of pages related to Epstein's investigation had not been disclosed by the FBI's New York field office. So we're kind of doing the hot potato blame game at this point, and she demanded the release of those documents. And here we are. We're still waiting. A lot of people have talked about Epstein's Island, Epstein's Island, Epstein's Island, but what nobody talks about is Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch. One thing about Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch, it's a property situated in Stanley, New Mexico, which is a very small town with what they refer to is the population is the size of a high school classroom. Maybe pun intended, because Jeffrey Epstein was into underage children, and it's a city about 40 miles southeast of Santa Fe, New Mexico. So you can't, when you get there, there's nowhere you could really go. You're about 40 miles out in the desert, and you're not going to be able to get to anybody else. The ranch has 7,500 acres. That's 11.7 square miles of high desert terrain. And there's in the property, there's a 33,339 square foot mansion constructed in 1993, featuring a 3-story, 4-bedroom main house with a 2,100 square foot living room. Additionally, structures included a caretaker's residence, stables, firehouse, a yurt. The ranch also boasts a private grass airstrip and a hangar. Facilitating discreet arrivals and departures, the ranch's proximity to Santa Fe and Albuquerque is approximately 40 miles, and it provides easy access to urban centers. I wanted to show you guys this Zorro Ranch and how creepy it is, and how we haven't really heard a lot about Zorro Ranch, how it came about, how Jeffrey Epstein purchased it, and the horrible things that happened on the ranch. Now, first of all, as you can see, this is in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's off the market. How horrible to have sold this house. You can see that there's no civilization around at all. No civilization around. Obviously, tons of money poured into this area. This was the place where some children's nightmares were lived out, and some sick fetishes took place, some sick crimes. Here's the house that was built. Looks like they didn't spare any expense. It looks like to me that they had, here's a good picture right here. Looks like here you came here, you were able to kind of have your home away from home, and this just fits Jeffrey Epstein's island, and here's Jeffrey Epstein's island in the desert, if you will. You can see right here. There's no way to there's no way to get away from anybody. So let's get into this. So the mysteries, suspicions, and powerful people surrounding one of Epstein's least discussed properties, which is Zorro's Ranch. Now, Zorro's Ranch is located, like I said, in Stanley, New Mexico, an extremely small and isolated town, perfect for perverts, right? I mean, the population history in 1990, there was 31 residents. Not too many doors to knock on if you ran and escaped and were looking for help. Matter of fact, we'll get into that later, showing you the low population and how far away it was from somebody else's house. So in 2000, there was 52 residents. And also in 2013, only in 2020, there was 108 residents. So this town has stayed relatively small for a very long time. And that's why it really doesn't make much sense to have such a huge, I mean, look at this sprawling. I mean, I get it. Some people want to be away from everybody else, but Jeffrey Epstein's reason for being away from everybody else is a lot different than a normal human being. As you can see, the house has everything, including these gorgeous sunsets, just plains, fields. It's a high desert. There's also nobody around. No one's here to hear the cries that go on at Zorro Ranch. Nobody's here to become suspicious. So the nearest city, major city, is 38 miles away. Santa Fe is 50 miles away. So Epstein was always in these elite social circles. So why would he buy a massive property in a place barely on the map unless you needed complete privacy and secrecy? And also, how did he know about this area? How did he, what was his whole mission? The island, secrecy. Here, secrecy. I didn't hear about Zorro Ranch in like I did Epstein Island. I'm not sure why they didn't speak about it as much. Let me show you guys on the map here. Look right here on the map. The closest to the main road, it's 17 miles. And it's really, when you break this apart, I mean, when you start investigating this and pulling down the layers, there's not, I think this is his right here. This is part of what they had going on here. And here's the ranch. It's absolutely in the middle of nowhere. I believe this is a very mountainous region right here. Let's see if we could get some terrain. I mean, trying to get away from Epstein's Island would be super treacherous. Um, I was looking the other day at where the closest house was, and I think it is right here, 6.2 miles away. You wouldn't even know it was there if you were on the road because it looks like it's a half a mile away. You might not even see that if you were on the road and traveling. Really, really treacherous conditions. And even from the road, you can't really see the ranch. Is that double gate for security? Bob wire. Looks like a grate of some sort, but anyways, let's get back to this creepy place called Zorro Ranch. The purchase. How did Epstein come across Zorro Ranch? Who helped Epstein get this ranch? It was bought in 1993 from the family of former New Mexico Governor Bruce King. Now we know that Epstein floated in circles of the upper classes, influential people, world's most powerful, world's most famous, world's most rich, and obviously hung out with them, and they knew who he was. I don't know if they knew who he was, but they knew of him, meaning they knew Epstein. Knowing Epstein in these circles, what was a regular thing to see him with the stars. I could see maybe he found out through somebody else that somebody was selling this land, and in 1993 he bought this land from the New Mexico governor Bruce King, and Bruce King served three separate terms as New Mexico governor. So Epstein built a 26,700 square foot mansion with a 2,100 square foot living room on the land. So just to kind of give you a breakdown of 2,100 square feet, that's some people's whole house. That was his living room. And the 26,700 square foot mansion, well, some people's parcels, large parcels, 10,000 square feet. So he had a house that was three times a large parcel, and that was just the house. Again, this was on over 7,000 acres. So, in addition to that, Epstein wasn't a rancher. So, the question is, who tipped him off about this massive property in a political family's hand? It could be, we could pull out all the conspiracies, but we could also see that in networking, someone's going to hear about something from time to time. But it definitely fits. If he was putting the word out that he was looking for some land where he could purchase that was off grid, this was definitely the place. Let's go. Let's go to the private airstrip. Who was flying in and out? Epstein built a private airstrip and an airplane hangar on the property. Now, flight logs back then, I could see him easily being able to build a private airstrip and an airplane hangar on the property. This would allow him and his guests to fly in and out discreetly without having to go to any major hubs, which is really one of the reasons why Epstein Island is in the spotlight right now. They're able to gather those logs in an area of 23 people. Flight logs could get lost in translation, be not as important in an area where it is discreet, avoiding major airports and customs. This allowed Epstein to fly under the radar. This is the worst type of person you want flying under the radar, doing under the radar activities with his with his friends, his associates that are doing committing these horrible acts that we're still waiting for the release of the Epstein list to see who these people are. I mean, the way that they do damage control on the Epstein list is evidence enough that there must be something so bad that it will blow the top, and they are afraid of it infecting the top infrastructure. Or so, the private airstrip, who's flying in and out, we will never be able to know. What we know about his flights to Little St. James. So the question is, why do we have almost no public flight logs for Zorro Ranch? And I think that's exactly why Zorro Ranch was picked for Zorro Ranch, was less information, under the radar, more incognito. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the most horrific things happened here, where you're not going to get, just like the island, you're not getting away, you're not going anywhere. And it's treacherous terrain, especially in the summer. In the winter, flash floods, unbearable heat. You couldn't run away if you wanted to. And if you could, where would you go? It just looks like there's nothing there for miles and miles and miles. Here's the next thing that they found at Zorro Ranch: the high security surveillance and tech setup. So there were reports that suggest hidden cameras were everywhere inside the mansion. If that doesn't tell you right then and there was the same thing that was going on Lolita's Island was going on here, or maybe even more. Just evidence is right there. Case closed. There were hidden cameras inside the mansion for Jeffrey Epstein to do his work. There was a large mechanical room that housed massive servers and computer systems. Who knows what those are for? The servers and computer systems, meaning that these cameras and everything were online. That's the first we would think of. Or what was he doing? Who was he communicating with? And what was going on out in Zorro Ranch? Some people believe that this was used for recording blackmail material. Epstein had a known pattern of recording powerful figures. So, was Zorro Ranch another operation for leverage? Well, I'm going to get into something even more disturbing as we kind of move on. So, we're looking at this house. You can obviously see this was a house built to entertain and impress. And it looks like it was set to create comfort for these people in the middle of nowhere. And why would these people what would make somebody go to this place with Jeffrey Epstein in the middle of nowhere? One could say, hey, they just wanted to get away and relax. But, if Epstein Island tells you anything about what Zorro Ranch would be, I would say it's just as diabolical, just as horrible, if not more. So we're looking at look, where are you going to go? If you were there, you were trying to get away, it looks like you're not going to make it anywhere. What they should have did was bulldoze this to the ground, but what they did was sell it. The money went to the victims. We could have raised $27 million and burnt this thing to the ground. All the money we're giving other countries for other things, we could have just burnt and torched this thing to the ground. I don't even know why somebody would want to live in this, but hey, here's a working horse stable. Look, maybe living quarters to keep people away. Amenities for the pedophiles. Here's the horse stable. This looks like maybe like a cabin that's there. Here they have their own fire station, greenhouse. Again, probably maybe for the help or people stay. Maybe they don't stay in the main. I'm not really sure what building that is. General store. Look at this terrain. When we're looking on that map, where are you going to go if you could get away, if you could slip away for a second and you wanted to get away? You're coming here, landing, maybe you didn't even drive there. You're just landing here and being shuttled. You're being trafficked here. Where are you? You have no idea where you're at. You don't even know what country you're in. There was something else that was rather quite disturbing about Epstein's life was his eugenics and seeding plans. The worst person to continue their offspring had a diabolical plan to want to be the Genghis Khan of pedophiles, and he suggested he wanted to seed the human race with his DNA. I'd rather we weed the human race of his DNA. He planned to impregnate multiple women at Zorro Ranch as a part of a bizarre eugenics experiment. I just think he sounds like a big pervert and is doing a bunch of perverted stuff, sick and twisted. And I'm sure he had some sort of scientific, justifiable, psychotic reason for this. I don't really read further into what he wanted to do besides just being a sicko. He frequently met with elite scientists from Harvard and MIT. What a lot of people are saying is maybe this was part of a larger humanist agenda, or it's just an excuse for something darker. So we're not really sure. Based upon, I do think it started with him just being a sicko, but sickos with money, power, and technology can do some crazy things. I'm not really sure what his diabolical plan was at Zorro Ranch besides impregnating a bunch of women. Here's the next part. New Mexico. Let's go back to this ranch. This picture is from Google, September 2024. So whoever moved in here, they have these signs up because there's people probably trying to visit this ranch or figure out about this ranch. Maybe this ranch has some, with 7,000 acres, there's definitely a possibility of some bodies being buried out here on this acreage. Maybe somebody didn't play well with Jeffrey's plans and became a liability and is out here laying in a shallow grave, a deep grave, something. Like I said, there's a lot of land here. I wonder if we could use some sort of LiDAR or some sort of sonar to go over this land and with a fine-tooth comb and see whose bodies are there, or if there are any bodies. I wonder if we could go over this land with a fine-tooth comb or some of the latest technology and find out if there are indeed some missing persons here. Because there's no way that over those years, everybody decided to play ball. Everybody decided to play well. And there wasn't an instance where something went wrong, got out of hand, created a great threat for Jeffrey Epstein, especially with him being able to keep things under wraps, and maybe was disposing of women, and maybe was disposing of them to the point where he had to start letting some. I don't know, but it's not that far-fetched, especially that you're in the middle of the desert in a town of 23 people and you're a pedo and you're doing weird, creepy pedo stuff with your pedo friends and you got a private plane. This seems very premeditated. The Zorro's Ranch seems a pedophile's, resort. And it wasn't, Jeffrey Epstein wasn't just trying to catch people. He was also a pedophile himself. So it wasn't like he was like, I'm just trying to, not that it would make it better, but he wasn't just trying to catch people in compromising situations. He himself was in compromising situations as well, which probably made the weirdos he attracted, probably made them more comfortable around him, right? And I'm pretty sure that he finessed some people to some bad situations as well, where, oh, you didn't know that won't. Hey, now, well, your secret's safe with me. I won't say anything, but I may need a favor sometime in the future. And who knows? The reason the crazy thing about this is that nobody knows how Jeffrey Epstein came to be rich, how he got his money, what exactly he did, because he wasn't really that significant of a person, but he carried all this money and this power and this influence. And here's my take on it. In computers, in coding, and in tech, and in marketing, one thing that we know is of most value, that's worth the most, is information. Jeffrey Epstein, in his world, was probably no different. The information he had was extremely valuable and created extreme power. In addition to money, because money can be printed from power. Jeffrey was able to harness this power with the information, just like in tech. Sometimes they'll have you get an app and you'll download it on your phone and you'll be like, cool, I'm playing this game for free. But no, you're not. You're not playing this game for free. You're giving up valuable information on the app. You didn't even know what you accepted. The app said it could track you. The app knows when you go to the store, when you're at home, how much time you spend doing this, how much time you spend on the phone. Maybe it knows what videos you're watching. Maybe it can listen to your voice like Siri or Alexa. And before you know it, you've given up more than you ever would want to. And now maybe you just by yourself aren't that valuable, but when we put all those numbers together and everybody who decides to play that game or utilize that app, we now have algorithms and information. And I think Zorro's Ranch was about that as well. You see the massive servers there and the cameras in every room. He was gathering information. But who was he gathering information on, and why won't they release that information? Thank you for listening to part 1 of Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch Horrors. Part 2 will be out tomorrow, followed by possibly a part 3, depending on how we edit it. We also will do a recap covering key details and overlooked aspects of Epstein's secretive Zorro Ranch. Stay tuned.